How's it going, everyone? Today I'm going to be going over a $1 game I played last night. It was a $100 max buy-in, so it's kind of shallow considering that the small blind is the same as the big blind. And throughout the night, everybody was opening about $5 or more. Some people would open 3 or 4, but there was a large range in the opening size. It would go anywhere from $3 to all the way to like even 12. Sometimes people would be opening for. And in that case, it kind of makes it hard, even from the big blind, to flat and open. Like, you can't really be flatting a $12 open with many hands, just because you're not really getting the pot odds that you would be if it was a $3 open, for example. But anyways, the first hand we're going over, I'm actually on the big blind, and we're playing 8-handed, under the gun +1 opens, and the button calls, and I've got 10-8 of diamonds. I think this is a fine call. The suited gapper, it's kind of high up there, but it can flop plenty of draws and play pretty well, even multi-way. And we're closing action, so I decide to call, and the flop is 10-2-4 with 2 spades on it. And I decide just to check, and the under the gun +1 bets $8. So we got a pretty easy call, I think, no reason to raise. And then we actually turn top 2 pair, which is pretty good. So the question is, do we lead here or do we check? And if you check, you probably want to go for a check raise, considering that it's so many draws that are available right now. But you also can just lead out because, you really shouldn't be hitting this 8 very often. So it can look pretty unbelievable to the under the gun player. And the problem with check raising is we probably get a lot of hands that are behind to fold, such as one pair hands that we'd want to maybe just call on the turn and then also call on the river. But if we check raise, we'd look a lot stronger than maybe if we just lead here. Anyways, I check, and under the gun 1 checks. And the river's a 5. It completes some draws, but I'm not really worried about anything. So I decide to check here and let under the gun +1 stab at it. And he ends up overbetting the pot slightly to 35. And, I don't think the raising's very good here because this is either going to be a bluff or an even stronger hand than us. And even if it happens to be a weaker hand than us, I'm not necessarily going to get a call from a worse hand. So I decide just to flat pretty quickly, and under the gun has 5s. So, yeah, in hindsight, betting the turn probably would have been a lot better there. And I kind of just let Villain hit the 2-outer on the river. So, already off to a not so great start. Several hours later, I'm kind of just stuck at $100 in my stack. I never had more than 140 in my stack up until this point. And that brings us to this hand where under the gun actually straddles for $2. So I decide to open for 10. It's probably a little big, maybe go like 8 or so. But it's not too crazy for this game. It's just 2x the regular $5 open that I've been doing the rest of the night. And then both the blinds call, and then the straddle actually raises to 50 here. And I only started with 105, so I mean, you could call here and try and invite the blinds in. But I think jamming's just better because the straddle's already pot committed here. And, we don't really want to let anyone see a free flop here by just flatting. So I just decide to jam. The blinds do fold, but the straddle actually calls, and he's got ace-jack of hearts. So doing pretty good here. And the run out has an ace on the river. And we even go twice, and he flops an ace on the second run out. So I get scooped in that one. Now, the immediate hand after, we look down at Queen 10 of hearts under the gun. And I open a 5. And then we have a call from the small blind. Everybody else folds. And we flop top 2 pair. So pretty good for us. I don't really see a reason to slow play here. We just decide to bet. There's a lot of draws available. And then small blind almost immediately check raises us to 15. And I mean, I think it's possible that we're behind here, but I figure we almost always have the best hand. And at this stack size, I don't really want to call here and let a free turn peel off. And I also don't want to raise to like $40 with only, $30 effective behind. So I decide to jam, and small blind thinks for a little bit and calls. He's got ace-4 of diamonds. So once again, a 65-35% all-in. And we get rivered. Also go twice, and we get rivered on the second run out on this one as well. So back-to-back, getting it in with 65% and getting scooped A bit later, I get dealt 7 deuce in the cutoff, and there is a 7 deuce bounty on the game. So we have a limp from under the gun 2, and then the hijack opens to 6. So I decided 3-bet to 18. And then the small blind, limper, and hijack all call. Which is not really what you want to see when you're 3-betting with the worst hand in poker, trying to win a bounty. I think if you're playing the 7 deuce bounty and you're going to get a lot of multi-way pots, I don't know if 3-betting's maybe even worth it. It could just be a complete EV punt. But I decided to do it here since I'm in later position. And it doesn't really work out. But the flop is ace, king, queen, which is pretty amazing for a 3-betting range, right? So despite the fact that we have the worst hand that we'll ever have here, it's actually a pretty good flop for us. And I decided to bet 25, just a little over 1/3 pot. Small blind and under the gun +2, quickly fold. And then hijack quickly jams for $82 effective. And yeah, obviously we can't call here. We don't even beat a bluff, so I have to fold. And hijack did have a bluff, which was tens. I don't really know why hijack jammed here, because this is kind of a very optimistic bluff, because I'm just going to snap it off a huge portion of the time. Another thing I'll say about this bounty is it was only a $2 bounty from each person, and we're playing 8-handed. So pre-flop, I'm risking $18 to win $25 from the bounties, plus whatever was in the pot. And then on the flop, I'm risking $25 to win 89, so I don't know if it's necessarily worth 3-betting with 7 deuce, even if you're in late position, especially in a game like this, because the bounty payout's actually pretty low, all things considered, so I don't know if I really should have been 3-betting there. I'm not too upset with going for the bluff here, especially on a flop like this. It just happened to not work out. This is one of the last hands of the night. I have pocket threes on the hijack. I open a 5. The small blind calls, and then the big blind jams for $19. So it gets back to me, and I'm thinking for a minute. I don't want to just flat here, because then I invite the small blind in, and I don't have a very strong hand. So I'd basically just be set mining at that point. So I decide there's a bit of dead money out there, and small blind's capped himself by just calling instead of 3-betting. So I decide to jam. Small blind quickly folds, and big blind has ace-5 offsuit. So it's actually one of the best case scenarios, because I actually have over 50% equity here. And once again, we decide to run it twice, and I get rivered. And on the second run out, he also rivers a 5. What a way to cap the night off. I was in for $469, out for $90, for a net loss of $379. So yeah, pretty painful one. I think I certainly made some mistakes, but sometimes you just run like shit for 6 hours straight. So anyways, I hope you guys got something out of this, some joy out of my pain and suffering.